share screen?
I would wait until Anita introduces you so everybody can see.
Yeah. Perfect.
So welcome everybody to our first call of our English forum call series of ACTO for 2015-16. Welcome, very good to see you here. So ACTO is a community of coaches that are dedicated to excellence in coach training, and we have representatives from all over the world that like to collaborate and are committed to quality and excellence in coach training. And this forum call series, we offer once a month a call on various topics that are relevant to coaches and coach trainers to provide value to you. And we're very excited to announce that we have an entire series of calls lined up for this year from now until our conference in June, once a month. And this year, for the first time, we have a call once a month in English. We also have a call once a month in Spanish to offer to our Spanish-speaking members. So we will now get underway. I'm just asking you to please mute yourself when you are not speaking so that we can control the noise on the call for our speaker. And I'm going to hand it over to another Education Committee member and board member, Anita, to introduce our speaker for today, Anne Rivers.
Great, thank you, Holly. I'm so honored to that I may introduce Anne, because from birth she is Dutch. She's one of my people. We live in the Netherlands, but she doesn't live in the Netherlands now. She married a Spanish man, and that's why she lives in Spain now. Anne is a psychologist, and she studied at the university, at the Dutch University in Tilburg, but also at the Columbia University in New York. But that's not why I like Anne so much. I like her because she, besides a psychologist, she is a really true entrepreneur. And she substantiates her entrepreneurship with science. And evidence-based research is an important point of her work. So that's nice. Anne is a woman who continues to amaze. I met her for the first time when we were in Venice on the annual conference. We were both at the Venetian costumed gala during the evening, and we both wear a mask. So we had the situation that we could meet each other from a certain distance, perhaps through technology. And that's why we are here together this evening in this call, talking about how to deal with distance and how to deal with techniques. And the question, the most basic question, how can we use innovative online coaching to help us with our training? That's why Anne is here, and she will tell us about that. It's up to you.
Thank you so much, Anita, for these very kind words. I'm going to share my screen as we practiced.
Yeah, I'll just let everybody know that if they have questions that they want to put in the chat bar, we will moderate those for you. So your question may not get asked right away, but we're happy to take your questions and put them in. Carry on.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak in this webinar. And again, Anita, for this very kind introduction. As she said, I'm Anne Rivers, and I would like to tell you a little bit more about e-coaching and the way my colleagues and me have designed our e-coaching approach. In the bottom I put the Twitter account. If you are active on Twitter, you can always maybe Twitter something on the presentation. So a short agenda. I'm going to talk a little bit about why would you work with e-coaching based on some research insights, what e-coaching is, how it works, and until the end, a short case that we're working on, and the ambition is to do that within the hour. I don't have to run at 7, so if it's a bit later, for me, it's okay. So yeah, I combine a few roles. As Anita said, I studied psychology, and I really feel an entrepreneur these days. I grew into being an entrepreneur. I don't think that I've always been, but since 2008, when I chose to move to Spain, yeah, it seems that the entrepreneurism grew with me. Yeah, I'm still researching at Tilburg University. I'm also working as one of the editors for the Journal of the EMCC. And I'm a mother of 2 little children. That's also a very important role. And that makes life very hectic, and but also very fun and interesting. So a little bit of my story. I used to live in Amsterdam, actually around the corner of that canal, and I worked for a financial institution, always in HR roles. And as Anita said, I met a Spanish man, and we traveled for 2.5 years up and down. And then at a certain moment, somebody has to move, and I chose to take the adventure. And that was a very impulsive, spontaneous decision. And I thought it through. But then when you really do it, it's such a big change. And now, 7 years after, I can only say that it has been a very good change. Since I would have never jumped out of my corporate life and jumped on the entrepreneurial boat, which I really like, because the whole e-coaching thing started in that time. When I announced in ING that I was going to move, they were already introducing e-coaching. And they already made jokes like that. That's going to be your future. And that's the first time I heard about it. And that was in 2008. Start reading about it. I ordered a few books that were written in the Netherlands with some first ideas. And Alexander Waringa, who was my partner in crime in this e-coaching journey, we chatted a lot about the possibilities of e-coaching, and so we started working together in a company, and we started executing e-coaching, and but we also had a very strong ambition to do a research project. We really strive to work evidence-based. So based on some research and lots of thinking and talking, we put together a proposal, and how e-coaching could develop leaders in certain leadership skills. And so there was a lot of work just to put that research up, and we wrote that proposal, and we were very free in our thinking and the possibilities, because it's all hypothetical. And but then so we submitted it, and then something happened that nobody expected, and it was that we got a grant from the government. And so our hypothesis, we had to realize them. We had to really think of, okay, e-coaching, how are we going to do it? And what is there known about e-coaching? We started talking to a lot of people, and we found out there was very little known about e-coaching. So besides our research job, which was a part-time job, we said, listen, we're really going to dive into this. And so after a lot of studying and reading, we came to, well, we built a model, and we built a method, and we really chose for asynchronous e-coaching, so through writing, because it had many benefits. And so that research project started going on, and we developed we developed theory, and then we developed a website, and then we developed a training. And it was like this continuous flow that we got into until one of the editors in the Netherlands called us, don't you want to write a book for us? Yeah, of course we will write a book. Yes, let's do that on top. And we got in this wave, and it with lots of energy and belief in the power of the combination of technology, internet, and how people learn. As psychologists, we're very aware how people learn and what you need for that. So that's a bit of how the e-coaching journey from my side started. And if you look at research, is that if you read articles about transfer of training and about coaching and about leadership development and about interventions, you often read that there's a concern of training and coaching, of transfer of training and coaching. So how are you sure that you make things stick, so that when people go back to their daily job after a training or after a coaching session, that they really start working, for example, with new competencies or new behaviors? And it's difficult to really guarantee that transfer. It's a challenge, I think, that everybody who works in this field has to deal with. And it's funny because the other day I was organizing a cupboard and I found a little plastic bag that I didn't look in that for, I think, in the last 10 years. And I found little feedback papers of participants in a leadership training that I did. It was a very, very well leadership training. I enjoyed it a lot. I learned a lot. But I remember that I left that very expensive training with lots of insights and experiences. But I went back to my work, and I think that within a few days, nobody ever asked me for it anymore. And it got in the back of my mind. And I was so focused on my work again. And so I was reading back those notes, and it was a beautiful, it's beautiful, it's written. You can keep it, you can read it again, and it causes the same emotion again. And what I saw was like, okay, well, now 10 years afterwards, I think that I developed a little, and I think I've learned a lot. But then I thought, what if, knowing what I know now, after being so much into e-coaching and coaching in general, I thought, what if they would have offered me back then e-coaching, or what if or any form of coaching at that moment was or would have been so nice to sustain what I had learned, to really work on those insights, to decide, okay, so what kind of competences do I need, or what do I, well, so I think that I think there's such a strong case to add coaching, e-coaching, and the e-coaching, because you can really bring it to the workplace to increase the effectiveness of training. And in the end, that's what we all want. As a manager, you want your people to develop. As a company, you want better results. As a person, lots of us want to learn and to develop. At least I think that most of us want. So if you look in research, there's more and more people are more in favor of job-embedded learning. So the most promising approach is to bring the learning to the actual working place. And the key words are that learning is a continuous process. And when you take learning into relevant context, it adds a lot of value of how the learning sticks inside of your own system. The continuous interaction that you have, for example, with a coach or with a mentor, helps you to reflect and to learn from those experiences that you have in the workplace. What is really important is that it's customized to individual needs. Every person is different, and every person has a different need. And of course, it's very expensive to always focus on personal needs. But by adding e-coaching, which already wins a lot of those costs, can provide this. And then the daily routine, it's the daily routine where you interact, even if it's at home or at your work or where things take place, where you get feedback. That's actually where the learning takes place, and where you are confronted also with your own behaviors and your own attitudes. So in literature, actually, coaching and mentoring in the workplace are mentioned as valuable practices to add to any kind of people development intervention. And but you see that executive coaching is just very expensive, and not everybody has a manager that knows how to coach you. I remember that when I was a manager, I loved to coach my people, but I'm a psychologist, so it's not strange, but there's so many that haven't got a clue how to coach their people. And so I believe that there is an individual need to learn, and e-coaching could be such a good response to that, because it becomes just more accessible. So You have a maximum effective development is customized. Well, I have more things here on the sheet that you can read afterwards. But people really learn if you make it continuous, interactive, increased reflection, continuous feedback, constantly relating it to the context where you are. Therefore, now we have a very strong proposal that is, why don't we combine what we had yesterday and today, of course, had a classroom training, but also the face-to-face coaching. Oh, can I continue, Helly?
Yeah, I just wanted to put in a question from me. When you refer to e-coaching, what do you mean by it?
Yeah, I will come to that.
Okay.
Yeah, the next sheet is the I show a definition. So what I was saying is that if you combine classroom teaching, face-to-face coaching with the possibilities of today, which is technology and internet, and you do that in a well thought through way, you can really facilitate learning, embed learning in the daily context, and we can really make an effort to make our efforts more effective. Well, this is another model that shows that if you have contact like every so many weeks, your engagement goes up and then it drops a little bit, while if you have continuous contact with somebody, you can have like also a continuous flow of engagement and involvement. So coming to your question, Helly, so what do we mean by e-coaching? I wrote it down here in this sheet. It's a non-hierarchical development relationship where learning and reflection takes place analogously and digitally, and communications take place at a physical distance. That's our basic definition. And under it, I show you like an overview of the different types of e-coaching versus face-to-face coaching. And what you see is that like this would be a form of video coaching, telephone coaching. We're out at a distance, but we can still see each other and we speak. And it's a synchronous way of talking. As soon as you go into chat coaching or email coaching, you see that it's most different from face-to-face coaching. And we have seen that in video coaching and telephone coaching, you use a lot of the same skills. You have to learn a little bit to get used to work with online cameras and to see what, because I can't really look you in the eyes, for example, even if I do feel that I see somebody, and which is really nice, but I can't make that contact at this moment. You need to get used to those kind of limitations. But if you take it to mail coaching, it's the most different way of face-to-face coaching. And it's also difficult because you take away a lot, for example, the nonverbal communication, but you get a lot in return. And it's the asynchronous way of communication that creates lots of flexibility and increased reflection time between a coach and a client. So we've identified 3 pillars in the text-based e-coaching. So I'm going to talk now mostly about text-based e-coaching. And those 3 pillars are social anonymity, the asynchronicity, and the written word. And so if you look at asynchronicity, the fact that we do not have to communicate at the same time, at the same place, creates that we become more independent and become more flexible. But it also creates that we can work with small steps. Small steps, like I work with my coach, with my coachees, and I have like 2 or 3 times a week contact. Sometimes I have 1 time a week contact, but it gives you the opportunity to build up a continuous dialogue with somebody, and you work with small steps. You don't work with one big step, small steps. That's one of the natural ways of people learn. Take small steps, and when you take small steps, you probably also have more success experiences. And when you have more success experiences, the positive reinforcement and grows, increases. If you look at social anonymity, that's all about the fact people don't see you. So maybe you're less behaving upon expectations. Maybe you suffer less from prejudices. I know that today I thought, what am I going to wear? How I'm going to do my hair? I wanted to look a little bit nice because people are looking at me. But I know when I'm e-coaching, text-based, I don't worry about all these things. I'm completely focused on the client, on what the client is about. And I have learned to like it a lot. So, and you also see that the social anonymity creates, for example, that you have a decrease of inhibition. People become very open and they really like to talk about problems that they sometimes are ashamed of, and I find it more easy to talk because they don't have to look you in the eyes. And I, for example, have a Polish coachee at this moment, and I told her, like, if you want to do a call, we can also do a call, you know, because blended ways of e-coaching work really well. And she said, no, I am so much more open when I don't see you. And it's direct feedback from one coachee, and it doesn't count for everybody, because there are also people that really like to see somebody and have that personal contact. But there's also a big group that really enjoys that social anonymity. And then we get to writing. Writing is a way of expression that has been researched extremely, and for example by Pennebaker, and lots of in the context also of e-therapy. And you see that writing in itself has such a structuring characteristic, and it creates reflection, but it also gives you a different access to emotions and a different restructuring of certain cognitions. And even when people write, they say, oh, after I wrote it all down, things became very clear to me. So in writing itself, you find positive aspects of that way of communication. So what we did is we translated these characteristics and all these insight and theories into a model and to a method. And of course we also have technology, which I will also discuss shortly. Because if you want to coach, you need a model, and if you want to do it on text-based, you really need a method. We've seen how difficult it is if you just start e-coaching without having a clue, and you get stuck easily because it's just completely different dynamics that asks for different skills. Hallie, are there any questions so far? No? So what we, excuse me?
Sorry, I was just coming off mute to say no. No.
Thank you. So the model you see in front of you is, we called it the ABC model. It's a very pragmatic model. It stands for Accelerated Behavioral Change. And if you see the model, you see an analyze part, the internalize, and the sustain. And we very much start working from the GROW model, which is a very well-known model that lots of coaches work with, and we think it's great to start with the GROW model in the analyze phase, and you need to take your time to explore. But then it's the internalize, it's that second circle where we've tried, our designer, to put some movement in it. That is all about action. It's about formulating a SMART goal, get into action, start really doing what you formulated in that goal, reflect upon it, review it. You get reinforcement from your coach or your mentor or any other people that guides you. But you also get reinforcement from the context where you are experimenting. That can be very positive feedback that makes you really want to try again, but it can also be critical feedback that wants you to talk quickly with your coach again, like, hey, something went wrong, and that somebody can really stimulate you to do it again and to give you positive reinforcement. So in that middle part is where we think that the strength of e-coaching is that you can work in small steps with small goals, with frequent interactions and frequent feedback, so that you can really feel at a certain moment in the review phase, okay, I really feel that I'm doing well and I'm ready to go or to a next goal or to end this process. And then you get into the sustain phase, which is really important to know. So what do I need to maintain this, do I need a coaching session in 6 weeks, or do I need my manager to help me, or do I ask my colleagues to give me feedback, for example? Or, some people make summaries, some people put things on their computer, just to help you to make it sustainable. And so it's a very simple process model for e-coaching that is actually, you can use that even if you use chatting or if you use phone calls, because you can, the characteristics fit in all types of e-coaching, and but it just takes that extra element of more frequent contact, of baby steps, and of very action oriented to actually really try out new behaviors. And then we come to the text-based version of e-coaching. And what you see is that e-coaching, text-based e-coaching, actually is e-communication. And it's all about how to build that online relationship. And I really love this picture. One of my colleagues once found it. It really expresses what you're trying to do. You really try to reach out in your text to another person and to build that relationship that is such a crucial factor also when you're e-coaching. So what we did is we studied language theories, communication theories, and we were introducing the work of Brown and Levinson, which was the politeness theory, which is all about what do you do in language with each other to build that relationship and to build interaction. And they have put what we do in language into a model, which is very applicable for e-coaching. So we worked with the work of Brown and Levinson. We studied Grice. We studied Searle. Searle has made categories of what we do in language, that you can categorize that in 5 categories, like expressives and declaratives. It's a bit theoretical, but we train people in it, and then you really learn to read objectively what has been written in a text. Because when I would give you all here a piece of text, and I would ask you, what do you read here? Everybody gives me a different answer. And that's because we all have a different reference frame, and we have different beliefs, and we interpret it differently. And by using this method that we created, that we designed, you really learn how to read objectively what is there and what is not there, and what is a possible interpretation and what is not. And if I do have interpretation, I first need to check if that is true, because if you make the wrong interpretation, it's dangerous for the process. So we put that in a very clear method, 8 steps. And it's all about how do I read and how do I write. And it gets as specific as to the format of an email. How do you start? How do you end? What are the components when you write an email? And the funny thing is that often people choose to start with e-coaching because they think it's cost saving, time saving. But in the beginning, it's not, because before you're really happy about your message, it can take you a lot of time. And I notice also, I sometimes have messages that I'm experienced now, I may say. Sometimes it takes me 10 minutes, but sometimes it takes me 40 minutes. And but that has all to do with the coaching question and with the amount of contact and. But it's a completely new way of looking at communications in an interpersonal dialogue, and it creates lots of opportunities. And then technology. Technology is like this inevitable component of e-coaching. And I remember that Alexander and I were psychologists, and well, Alexander knows something about technology, I have to say. That's why we really made it in the beginning. My knowledge was very little. I've learned a lot, I have to say. And in the beginning, we were like, yeah, technology, we really need it, but we don't really like it. And up until you have something that you really like. And so we've invested a lot in the last years in building a website, a coaching environment that really fits every kind of e-coaching that you would like to execute. So it has the dialogue is central, And but it also has the opportunity to chat and to send a text message. And as we speak, we're building in videos so that you really have this all-round e-coaching platform that you can use for any kind of design that you choose for. And what is the most important if you work with technology is safety. It's privacy, it's safety, to make sure that you do as much as you can to take care of the information of your client. And we always say it's a 99% guarantee, because I also cannot guarantee that somebody breaks into my in my office at home, for example. Here I'm in a Regis office in Spain, but I do all that I can. And well, we've designed Platform and then many other websites in the world that take these privacy issues very serious. Our research, for example, we executed that in a big financial institution, and that was the most important topic. Privacy, but also psychological privacy. It's so the technical privacy, that nobody can really break into your website. Well, there are many things that that our technology partners have built in to make it safe. But it's also the psychological safety. You want to feel safe when you're involved in e-coaching. And so you log in with your personal username, and you know that nobody else can watch, because there are also people that do e-coaching in their email box. But when you are a manager in an organization, you have colleagues that can read your email box, or your secretary can see that. And you don't want that other people read what you're working on, because it's very private. So therefore, we always recommend, if you really like to start experimenting or working with e-coaching, make sure you do it safe. Very important. So I think that I've already talked about certain benefits of e-coaching. It's about logistics, it's about cost, it's about continuity, it's about speed that you can create, but it also the new generation, the youth of today, are so used to communicate online. They're so used also to communicate asynchronic. And actually, we've seen in several studies that they really embrace this e-coaching. And also the expansion of service and target groups. But before, for example, for myself, when I was not yet in e-coaching, I was coaching people that were close to me or that I could drive to within an hour. At this moment, I'm coaching somebody in Texas and in Poland and in England and in Belgium, for example, while I'm situated in Spain. And I have these really great relationships with people online, and it's just incredible. Sometimes I'm still like sitting behind my computer and thinking, this is so cool, I can really be of added value in a process and trying to help somebody, even if I'm so far away. So those are some of the benefits. And then there are absolutely a lot of challenges. It is the absence of nonverbal communication, because you get a different kind of dialogue. However, the way people write, and you see that also changing in the process, it says a lot about how people are. There's a certain kind of self-representation in text. You really need to know how to read and write. It's important, for example, that you need to write without any mistakes, spelling mistakes, for example. However, on the side of the client, it's not important if they make mistakes, as long as you don't make an issue out of it. You're very much dependent on technology. If technology doesn't work, you have a problem. And I've encountered that problem several times, especially I live in the middle of the mountains and then my internet doesn't work and and you get very frustrated. So it will always be a difficult part. But also, for example, what we notice is the motivation of the coachee. If somebody is not motivated to work with you, he just doesn't come online. And it's easy to not come online, and we see that. And if I have an appointment, I still have the decency to go to that appointment probably, or I call to cancel it. But we see that online it doesn't happen. Sometimes people just forget that they have an online coach. They forget to come online. And that is mostly when people, well, there are lots of reasons, and because in the research we also saw that the people have personal problems, or they're just too busy, or I don't have time. But there are also people that just forget. And even if you get messages on your phone, and but we do notice that if people choose for e-coaching, and if they choose to work on themselves, that it works really well. But that's a crucial point. Also, if you design a program, as a leadership institution, for example, you design a program, you can't force people to do things because it just doesn't work. And it becomes very clear when you work online. And then the capacity to reflect. That differs between a lot of people. For example, I was coaching somebody also in a financial institution in Belgium, and I was trying to ask like all these kind of questions to get to reflect upon a certain topic, and it just didn't work. So what I did at that moment is I chose for a questionnaire. It was a very good one, and it did exactly what I wanted. So you really need to think of the tools that you have and the techniques that you can use to get somebody to reflect. I think that works also face-to-face, but that also is the case when you work online. So those are a few of the challenges in e-coaching that we see. So if I can say something about how can you apply it, e-coaching can be a standalone process. For example, you have 12 or 16 or 6 or 8 weeks with somebody, and you just work online. As a standalone individual coaching program. There are people that start, for example, with a face-to-face. In the Netherlands, especially, which is a very small country. I think I don't know if you know the Netherlands, but it's very small, and most places you can reach within 2 hours, 1 hour, well, maximum 3, otherwise you're in Belgium or in Germany. We have a strong need to see people. So what you see is that people combine it. They start with a face-to-face, and then they have, for example, 6 to 8 weeks online contact, and then they see each other or not. You can also do that with a Skype call combined with email, or a chat conversation combined with. So when you become skilled in this profession, because I really like to call it a profession, you learn how to play with the different tools that you have and the different media that you can use. So what we also use it for is that people have had, for example, executive coaching process, 4, 5, 6 meetings, and then they say, okay, now I'm very conscious and aware of what I need to change, but I haven't changed anything yet. And then they say, okay, I want an e-coach for 16 weeks, and I really want to work with it every day or 3 times a week at least, to really make that change. So that's an example. Another example are leadership programs, or any other development process. So if it's about communications or whatever skill people want to learn, you can always design. We come together in a training, and you have so many weeks online coaching, and then you come together again. But it's also a tool that is interesting within organizations. It's about talent management or employability, or you want to manage, you realize a cultural change. Everything that involves a behavioral change, by applying any form of e-coaching, can really make it happen that you realize that cultural change or that new strategy that you want to implement. So if, for example, this case that it's a leadership development case that I would like to illustrate is that, so we worked together with a business school in the Netherlands, and I mentioned it before. So what we did was, and we talked to the program owners and the program managers and to the company, and we decided, okay, so there are 20 people all over the world that are flying into Holland, and then they go back for 6 months. Let's give them all the e-coaching module, and let's see how that works. So within 2 weeks, we could scale it up easily because we have enough coaches. It's all online, which is often also something that the one that gives the assignment really likes. It's scalable, it's flexible, it's global. And so there was like during the 5th day of the program, my colleagues went there and they gave a presentation of what is it, what to expect, what not to expect, to all the participants. So there was a moment also where they could ask questions. And then we all the coaches that were contracted, we got phone numbers, we got all the information we needed to set up profiles. And we all agreed on starting with a phone call. And that way 6 coaches were working parallelly, and in between we sometimes have like well, in Dutch we have this word intervisie, and I don't think you can translate it to English. It's a kind of where you talk and you share experiences, and then after 6 months all the people come back to the work to the business school, and they all had their coaching, and they report back to each other what they have learned. So that's an example of how you can add e-coaching to, for example, a training program. And
we have a couple questions that one of them might be quite relevant to what you just said. Anita has a question about developing behavior skills. So how you work with e-coach to develop behavior skills, and how to do exercises with the client this way.
So how you actually do it. Yeah. So, well, I have to say that lots of coaches do it in a different way. Some people work with techniques and exercises that they learn through their coaching education, and they adjust them to an online version. And I think many known techniques, like, for example, the dream question, people use a lot, but they're still in the beginning, in the analyze phase. But people work with, I've seen, for example, people that sit on a chair and think of this or do that. But for example, I work a lot with, tomorrow you have a meeting, and you're going to try to give, because, for example, people have trouble with feedback. You're going to try to give feedback tomorrow. Start once. Think of how you want to prepare it. Let's discuss. Do you need any tips from me, for example? And just go and do it. And let me know how it went. And then the next day, or even the same day, people log in and tell you, oh, I had such a good conversation, and I saw this reaction in that person. And it depends how people come back to you. And then you say, okay, let's do this again. What is a good opportunity for you this week to try this behavior again? For example, I had an executive that had trouble communicating with his wife. So I analyzed, so why is going so difficultly? And what do you then actually say? And what does she say? And we actually wrote the dialogue. What do you say? What does she say? And then you, for example, ask, write it now the way you would like it to be. And then somebody writes the way, and then they say, oh yeah, that's very different the way I like it. So, well, I'm going to try to do this differently to see if I get also a different reaction. It's as concrete as that. To constantly to bring the exercises into that daily routine of the client. I can't hear you, Anita, but I think you say thank you, or not. For me, everybody is on mute while Helly gets online.
Well, everybody can unmute themselves if they like.
Okay.
So I think we can carry on. We had one other question. If I could moderate the question, because I do a lot of coaching over the phone, and I know that there are ways that, although I can't see them, there's techniques or ways that you develop that you can actually hear things in their voice. Like, you get very much more attuned to hearing different tone and energy because you're used to only having a voice. So the question that somebody posed was how you might incorporate or accommodate for something like body language that's missing when you're using an e-coaching approach. And I am not sure how you would answer that question, but I'll put it out there for you.
Yeah, it's absolutely, the missing of the non-verbal cues is a big challenge. But because of the fact that you get other things in return, it balances it out. It's not so much that you can, replace it. You can't replace nonverbal cues, but you get other things in return that makes the interaction strong. And as I said, when the process is in the beginning, you really need to find out what kind of person and who I am, who I have in front of me. But at a certain moment, you see a kind of self-representation in the text. There is like a non-verbal cue in the text of somebody, and you even see that when people are developing a certain issue, that while they are developing that, they are actually changing the way they write. And you can see that, for example, people that have a problem with connecting with other people in their social relationship, and that they're trying, and by the time that they've experimented and they've tried, you see that they start writing more easygoing, and they start writing more because it has something happened inside. So, and also the methodology really helps you to focus on that relationship and to focus on how to read a text and to get also the cues out of it that maybe that you don't easily get out, but the method really helps you with that. And so it's absolutely, you don't find anything to replace, but you get so much in return that works really well.
Yeah, I just hear that it's different.
It's different. It's completely
no use in trying to say, well, how does this connect to that? It's just looking at them as valuable in their own ways. That's what
exactly.
Okay, thanks for those are the questions that we've got so far. So
Okay.
Lee Smith is happy with those answers, she says. Thank you, she says.
That's nice. Well, what we did is eCoach Pro is a Dutch-based company, and we wrote a book, and we have some programs. So we built like a landing page where you can find some more information, or if you would like to email me for certain questions, you can always email me if you would like to know more. But everything I told today is written in the book, and it's a very practical book. That gives you a theoretical insight, and later on a very practical step-by-step how to really work then with that model and that method. And then in the end, it has a complete program written out with all the responses between the coach and the client. That gives you a really good feeling of how this would work.
I've got a question for you, Anne. Can you hear me?
Can you speak a little louder, Sraj?
I have a question for you, Anne. May you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yes. You know that we adhere to coaching competencies, in that case, the 11 core competencies of coaching of the ICF, and one is establishing trust and intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like you to explain us some more things about how you foster that, how you can seek that, develop that. What's your take on it? Thank you.
I missed a part of the question because
it just caught up with it. You didn't actually miss anything. It cut out, but you didn't. It caught up.
Yeah.
I didn't cut out any words.
Right.
Okay. I was asking, what's your take on how to foster, develop trust and intimacy with the client in the e-coaching methodology?
Yeah. So the trust and the intimacy it's all about from the beginning talking about the expectations, about explaining things really well, especially also the trust also has to do with the privacy and with psychological privacy, and that you take time to explain that this is a process in between two people, and I'm only here to read what you're writing. There's nobody there, and that you reinforce the fact that you're there to help somebody. But we also work a lot from positive psychology that we always start every message with any kind of acknowledgement or compliment, so that you always reach out to that other person in a positive way, and you write in such a way that you always stress the fact that you're working together, that you're collaborating. So instead of using the word I, you use a lot the word we. We are going to work on this, or for example, that's an example. But also that you're completely focused on the other person. Everything you write is focused on the other person, and that creates the intimacy. But the intimacy is also created by the fact that you have so often contact. And so like the coachee gets the feeling, hey, my coach is there, you know, to walk by my side. And you have coaches that have very strict limitations. They say, for example, I only work Monday to Friday. I only answer between 9 and 5. I'm the kind of coach that also responds in the weekend because I like so much what I do. But it's really in the way you focus on the other, in the wording that you choose, and in the acknowledgement that you give somebody and the compliments for working so hard on her or himself.
Thank you, Anne.
We have time for, I think, one more question. Somebody's got something they would like to ask. Anne? I have a question that came to me, which I'll put in, is what are your initial ideas about how we would use this with training coaches?
Training of actual coaches?
Yes, because that's what most of us do.
Yeah.
We are coach training. So it's just initial thoughts about how this could apply to training.
Well, actually, and then I speak for the Netherlands, that's what we do most, training, coaching professionals. We train coaching professionals, we train school professionals that guide students, mentors, we've even had health practitioners, everybody that guides somebody in any way can do that also online. So since e-coaching is such a different way of coaching and a different dynamic, we have our own programs based on our philosophy and approach. In the Netherlands, there are other companies also that offer programs, but we really, really advise coaches to do an education in e-coaching. And then for example, we have a 2-day program. We have a 5-day program. So the 2-day program is more for people that really want to get introduced to e-coaching and to get like the first, get in touch with it. And then the 5-day program is when you really want to professionalize yourself. And what we have seen in the education program, I think we've trained over 300 people in the Netherlands. We do that open subscription, but also in companies. And I think I can say that we've really trained masters in coaching, and that I am a lot younger than they are. And when I'm standing in front of the group, and they have so much experience, and that and what we get back is that I've learned completely in a new way to look at language. I think so much more about the questions that I ask, because if you work online, you cannot ask 20 questions. You really have to choose which question to ask. And that question needs to be good, it needs to be good quality, it needs to make sense. And many of those told us we've actually become better coaches after this training. So it's really a training in itself. And so coaches first learn how to coach. You need to know the basics of coaching and also guiding people. And then you can do, it's like an extra training. So if I want to work online, how do I do that? And it's a combination of theory, of exercises. What is always a component of the training is a trial program. So after the first day, everybody goes home and you get a 3-week trial program with an actor, a coach, an actor. And you can play with the e-coaching and find out how the system works and what kind of exercises you want to use. And that's always very valuable. And then when you come back the second day, in the morning, you always spend time talking about what you've experienced. But what is very funny is that people read each other's coaching programs, and that we've also heard back a lot, that it doesn't happen a lot that you sit in a coaching conversation with somebody, but a written coaching conversation you can read, and it's such a learning opportunity to read each other's coaching. So it's really an on top training program. It's like if you choose, for example, to work with system coaching, or you want to learn a certain method, this is in a way something that you put extra in your backpack.
Yeah.
If you want to work online.
Got it. Great.
Yeah.
So we're just about out of time. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank you very much for coming and talking to us about this new way of coaching, so people have an opportunity to explore more how they might like to utilize e-coaching in their schools and in their businesses. Just a few announcements about our calls, if you would. Thank you very, very much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. So thanks everybody for being here. Please be patient. Your CCE application or certificates will be forthcoming, but we need some time to process our application, so we haven't completed that yet. Also wanted to let everybody know that our call next month is about powerful questioning with Marilee Adams, so we'd love to have you back. That's on October 21st. And keep in mind, keep your eye on your emails. We are going to be opening our conference in June for registration very, very soon, and it will be in Phoenix this year. So we'd love to see you there as well. So thank you very much for being here, and everybody have a good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever it is that you are in the world. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much.